Hello. Uh, Here we are back again for another exciting episode of Loosening the Grip. Tonight it's Chapter 7, The Behavior of Dependence. And that's a pretty interesting chapter if you get right down to it. I'm not going to do a PowerPoint with this one. I'm going to share the book with you. And I'm going to go over some highlights from your reading. I've gotten a little behind in the PowerPoint department, so and the graphs are eating my lunch. So I'm going to just lecture tonight, and you can follow along with your text, which I am just here about to share with you. This is supposed to be, there it goes, the behavior of dependence, which is really what we're concerned with when we talk about addiction, largely is the behavior of people. And the behavior of people who are under the influence can be terrifically erratic. And when you try to discuss this with them, you hear some traffic, by the way, going by on the road. I'm outside in my garage, and even though the traffic's a little distracting, it's not nearly as distracting as what's going on in the house. So, anyway, the behavior of people who are under the influence is what concerns us. You have people who are emotionally labile, who give you double-bind messages, conflicting messages that are impossible to comply with. Shut up and tell me what happened, sort of thing. They're fine one moment, lachrymose and crying in their beer the next. Father Martin, in some of his lectures, said that there are several types of drinkers that you find out there, though he might call them drunks. And one is the jocose drunk, and he's the one who's a lot of fun, dances around the room with a lampshade on his head and what have you. And then there's the bellicose drunk, and he's the angry one. He's the wants to fight everyone. Who the hell are you looking at? You looking at me? Kind of guy. Then you have the amorous drunk. You've known him or her 15 minutes, and they've got their tongue in your ear. And the lachrymose drunk, who is the one who's very sad and cries in his beer. The deal with that is that this type of drunk can be found in the same individual at different points during the night, which is a very frustrating thing for people to deal with, because you never know which person is going to show up and how long they're going to be that person. And it can be a very frustrating and a very sad thing to watch take place with individuals. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, you see, I'm controlled by outside circumstances. I'm not the one that's calling the shots here. Other people are telling me how to be or what to do or what have you. You hear a lot of rationalizing, justifying, excuses being made, that sort of thing, while they engage in behavior that really makes no sense. You don't have enough money to pay the rent, so you go on a drinking spree and buy a bunch of presents for the kids and bring them home. We get exuberant over little things and just let big things, the world fall down around us without any type of reactions. We overreact and we bend things around our addiction. And by that I mean, maybe I'm a working guy who goes out and puts in my 10 hours a day or 8 hours a day or whatever it is, and I come home and I find that my house is dirty. I don't have any dinner and all of that kind of good stuff. I have to come in and clean up and wash the dishes and cook my own dinner because my wife's been too busy smoking weed and sleeping on the couch watching soap operas. And I begin to resent this a little bit. And I'm not being sexist. This is common, by the way. So I might want to confront her a little bit and say to herself, and say to her, you know, I wish you would, you know, help out here, you know, and because I'm gone all day and I'm working and I come home and I'm tired, you know. But that's not what happens. I'll instead start drinking, and I'll let it build up, and I may let it build up over days and weeks. And so when it does come out, and there's an old saying called in vino veritas, in wine there's truth, and that may be so, but it comes out as a drugged truth. So instead of saying, you know, I would like for you to, you know, to meet me halfway here and let's see if we can't work something out, I tell her, you know, look at this place. You live like a goddamn pig. And then away we go. It's not coming out the way I wanted it to come out. And even though, you know, and I don't get what I want. So the drinker is a hard person to live with. And the person who lives with a drinker can oftentimes be a hard person to live with, too. I have trouble holding a job. She has to make excuses for me, you know, when I miss work. She has to come bail me out of jail when I get arrested for public intoxication or, you know, creating a nuisance or assault and battery or DWI or any of the other things that I do. And it's like living with a crazy man. And indeed you are kind of living with a crazy man in that respect. The behavior is not just an issue for family members, but it's an issue for other people too. When I'm in my cups, I'm not a lovely individual, and I'm subject to doing or saying anything, you know. And maybe over the course of years, my friends don't want me to come over. They don't invite me around anymore when they have barbecues and watch football games and things like that because, you know, I'm going to show up. And the one thing that they don't know what I'm going to do, but they can pretty well guess is going to be inappropriate, right? And my family stops having people over for the same reason. They don't know exactly what I'm going to do, but they're pretty sure it's going to be inappropriate. And so that becomes an issue. The behavior of people who are intoxicated is unjustifiable, really. And sometimes it's inexplicable and sometimes it's inexcusable. And that's because we're drunk. Anybody who is drunk, as we've talked about before, is for that moment, while they're in that intoxication event, they're basically insane. They're not capable of using good judgment. They're not in their right mind. They are not rational. So there's a difficulty with that. You take the Pope, and I think I've talked about that before, and give him a fifth of Jack Daniels and a few Disco biscuits, and next thing you know, he's pretty wasted and maybe patting Reverend Mother on the fanny. That's not because he's an alcoholic. That's not because he's a full-time lech. That's because he's drunk. And when you're drunk, you do things that are embarrassing, that make no sense, that may cause other people embarrassment. So anyway, the behavior of the drinker is erratic, it's embarrassing, and sometimes it's dangerous. So people object to it, like when you're driving, for instance. trying to reason with someone who's drinking can be quite a chore. You know, we talk about things like friends don't let friends drive drunk, except have you ever tried to take car keys away from someone who is drunk or convince them that doing something that they're adamant on doing isn't such a good idea? Vernon Johnson wrote a book back in the 70s called I'll Quit Tomorrow. I recommend this book to people who want to understand about alcoholism. And Johnson describes a model that represented really a paradigm shift, a shift in thinking, a shift in understanding about alcoholism up until that point. And Johnson held a doctorate in divinity, and he was a recovering alcoholic. And he has a very pragmatic way of explaining the same process that Jelinek before him explained about how people went through physiological and personality and emotional changes on their journey through the process of developing alcoholism until they come into that personality. He described what emerging dependence looks like. Oh my goodness, I touched my computer pad when I shouldn't have. So am I supposed to be here now? Yeah, there I am. So the first stage in that Johnson describes that is on the road to alcoholism is learning the mood swing. And that's an important step because drug use is a learned behavior. You have to learn how to do it. And in this model, he's got a little graph where he swings between here pain and euphoria and what is normal. And normal really, I prefer to think of that as mid-range because normal is such a subjective term. And what's normal for some people is, absolute lunatic to me, and so it's kind of subjective. But it's what most people are doing most of the time, right? Or what these individuals are doing most of the time. When someone starts drinking or starts using drugs, they're not necessarily over here on the painful end, and I think that sometimes confuses people. I know I've heard people tell me, that when they're explaining their ideas of what alcoholism is about, that it's a person's attempt to escape unpleasant reality, to escape stress, to escape pain. And that's true. But most of us, when we start drinking, we're not trying to escape pain. Chances are pretty good we're just curious about what this is. And most of the time, a significant portion of the time, let me put it that way so I won't have to quibble, a significant portion of the time when someone starts drinking or smoking, it's because someone else wants them to. It's not because it's their idea. But whatever the reason, we're going to drink. So let me ask you, your first time that you're drinking, what should you drink? Should you drink whiskey? Should you drink beer? Should you drink wine? Should you drink something else? How much of it should you drink? How should you mix it? What is the proper dosage? And the answer to that is generally for most of us, hell if I know, so I start drinking like the people around me. Chances may be pretty good that I don't have much of a tolerance because I've never done this before. So I find myself overdosing with the drug. And I'm not talking about being overdosed in the sense of dying, although that could happen. But I drink too much. I get too drunk. I don't know how much to consume, and I don't know how long I should consume it. And once I'm drunk, I don't know how to act. Because I'm drunk, I don't know how to compensate for the intoxicant being in my body. So I may do all kinds of stupid stuff, and barf on my date shoe and all of that kind of stuff. So I don't know how to regulate yet. Now, when the alcohol begins to wear off, I discover I go back in the other direction. So here's my starting point, and here's where normal is. And I go over here towards euphoria, because the reason people drink, the reason that people do other drugs is to feel good, basically, and to move towards that euphoria feeling until you get into harmful use and dependency, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So I'm still seeking to feel good, and I'm going in this direction. But what made me feel good because of the rebound effect now might make me feel a little bad on this side of the line. But I'm learning that I can regulate that mood. I can regulate the sensations by the amount that I take over what period of time. So I can have like 2 or 3 drinks and I'll get over here to a good feeling. I may also learn something about myself that I don't quite understand, and that's if I have 2 drinks or 3 drinks, I may be able to just go out here, turn around, come back, and not experience much in the way of effects. But if I drink more than that, I can't accurately predict what's going to happen. I have learned that I have a limit, and that limit may be 2 or 3 drinks. And you may hear people say that. You may have said it yourself, I'm cool with a couple of beers, but you give me 3 or 4, I don't know what's going to happen, because my limit is a couple. I know people like that. I'm not one of those people like that. 2 beers is like kissing your sister. What's that about? I want fireworks. I want something happening. So I'm an affect drinker. I don't believe in drinking unless you're going to get drunk. So I have to learn the mood swing and see where I can go with what dosage and what happens when I come back. I haven't, as my tolerance increases over time, I have to keep adjusting that knowledge. But because I've learned the mood swing, I'm able to do that. The second stage in the developmental process is called seeking the mood swing. And this is what happens after you learn that alcohol can be counted on, that you can depend on it to enhance mood or to give you a sensation that you want. And I don't know if people ever get tired of the sensation. At least I've never had anyone come into my office and say, you got to help me, Bushart. I'm tired of the rush. It just doesn't happen that way. I may get tired of a whole bunch of other things, but that feeling, that the rush from doing a drug, from taking a drink, it's not something that people tire of, really. Anyway, drinking has a particular purpose now, and you begin to rely on it, and you begin to use it for all kinds of things. You start feeling a little down. You on the lower side, the painful side of normal, and you can take a couple of doses and feel better. Remember that little cartoon that we talked about where the psychiatrist said, here, take this medication, you'll feel good in 6 weeks. And the therapist said, come in and join my group, you'll feel better in 6 months. But the bartender says, here, drink this, you'll feel better in 6 minutes. People learn that, and it becomes a part of their repertoire for getting through life. They start low. They go out here, they get an intoxication rush adjust their mood however they want it. When they come back, they're still higher, feeling better than they were when they started, because they were feeling a little down when they started. As the drinking progresses and becomes more problematic for them, you'll see them start moving further and further in this direction, so that now, because of the rebound effect, they may be finishing back over here in an area that's even more depressed, more painful than they were when they started. But they're still, even though they're in an area where they can have problems, there can be physical consequences, there are psychological consequences and emotional consequences associated with this, they're still not into a disease pattern as of yet. Sometimes we do more than we meant to. We lose control, or we make bad choices or whatever, and we get a little drunker than we had intended to get, and then there are consequences to that, but we're still not in a disease process. As we continue to drink and continue to use, and our tolerances build, and we have to keep adjusting upward the dosage that we take to get to where we want to, then we see the likelihood of problems emerging, more problematic behaviors. For a minority of drinkers, the scenario will have a different outcome. Other than regulate or titrate downward in order to mediate the problems that one has while they're drinking, and by that I mean cut back, stop drinking so much. And most people do that, by the way. But there's a number of us who don't. And we move a thin, invisible line that's mentioned in the big book, and Johnson mentions it too, and it separates the second and the third stages, and that's the stage between seeking the mood swing and harmful use. And the boomerang effect for the alcohol use is now definitely more pronounced. And earlier in our drinking careers, it seemed like most of the things that happened with us around drinking were pleasant, and we had good feelings and good thoughts about our drinking. But now that we've moved into the harmful use area, we start experiencing some more serious consequences. And the thing that makes us feel better also makes our pain more intense around the drug use. So that I start here rather in a lower range of my norm, whatever that is. I go out to my alcohol-induced mood, and when I stop drinking, I shoot right past my starting point where I was to a finishing point that's on the painful side of the line where normal is. Now, we can go through these stages without using alcohol. If I, for instance, am coming to work one morning and I come outside, and I'm not trying to do anything here, it's trying to make me do stuff. I come outside and I get up, get dressed. I know where I am. I don't feel like sneaking out of my own house. My car's where I left it, and I remember leaving it there. I'm feeling pretty good. Not euphoric. I'm not on top of the world. I have to get up and come to work. And I'm on this side of the line, over in here. But when I get outside, I find that I have a flat on my car, and I'm over here. I don't have to call suicide hotline or anything like that. But it's unpleasant. It's not something I want to do. I have to change the tire before I go out. But I do that, and then I go on my way, and then when I get to work, get out of my car, I find a $20 bill laying out in the parking lot, and I'm on this side. I like finding $20, you know? And then I come inside and you say to me, hey, that's my $20. And boom, I go back on the other side of that euphoric line. And we go up and down on this scale all the time. There's a birth in the family, and we're over here on the euphoric side. Everybody loves to see the new baby. But we lose a family member, and we're on the painful side over here. I'm unemployed, I'm worried, I can't figure what I'm going to do next. I don't have a job, I can't pay my bills. Then I get one. Boom, I'm over here on the euphoria side. Most of my time I spend in this area, though, up and down. I cross the lines a little bit here, a little bit there. But when I start mixing the alcohol in, and I'm seeking to move further down the euphoric side of the line, and I begin to develop harmful use, it also puts me over here on this side, and rather than pain, I'm going to call it dysphoric, the unpleasant side of the line. And as I go further down the unpleasant part of the line, then I begin to develop some habitual behaviors that are going to get me in trouble. Because over on this side, down here, I start drinking not just to feel good, I start drinking to keep from feeling bad. And to keep from feeling bad is self-medication. And when I have no blood alcohol content, I'm unhappy. Maybe not in severe pain, but I'm unhappy. Because I'm drinking, I'm medicating myself. And I'm moving towards the fourth phase in Johnson's model. And the fourth phase in Johnson's model is drinking to feel normal. Now, along the way, my personality's becoming different. The way that I interact with people are becoming different. I use alcohol to manage my emotions. I drink to feel, and I drink to numb out. I drink to give myself permission to do things, and I drink to when I'm regretting the things that I've done. I rationalize things, I wouldn't have been so drunk if Dylan hadn't been pushing the drinks. I wouldn't be so drunk if Sally didn't mix the drink so stiff. I wouldn't be so drunk, if. And a number of rationalizations really get in our way because we hold them up as shining examples of the fact that we can't have an alcohol problem. You don't understand. I can hold my liquor. I can drink more than my friends. When they're all falling down, I'm still walking. That's not a good sign. People who are telling you that, though, believe it is. They think that they're presenting to you a strength, a reason that they can have a problem, when what they're really presenting to you is the probability that they do have a problem because of the abnormal tolerances. I can't be an alcoholic because I never drink in the morning. That's because I don't get up until the afternoon. I can quit whenever I want to. I just never want to. Everyone I know drinks the way I do. I only drink beer. I only drink wine. I only drink wine spritzers. I never miss work. I've never gone to jail. I don't, I always pay my rent. I don't, whatever, fill in the blank. These are distortions, and they don't reflect the reality that the person's living in. A rationalization, kiddos, is a good reason rather than the real reason that people do things. And the last person in the room who's going to have a dependable opinion, a reliable opinion on their intoxication level is the person who's intoxicated. You ask people who are loaded how loaded they are, and they always underestimate it, or tend to. the people may think themselves clever or witty when they're being snarky and mean. When they sober up, they may regret the things that they've said or done if they remember them at all. Drinking is supposed to improve the mood, but the more you drink and the more you become dependent on drinking, it's pretty frequently, more and more, the opposite is the case, that you become surly and withdrawn and argumentative and sometimes loud and aggressive just an unpleasant person. And as the alcohol wears off, you begin to feel even worse. So you don't get an improved sense of well-being over time, but a diminished one. They talk about the vicious cycle of alcohol use developing, and it is cyclical. You are feeling bad, so you take a drug, and it makes you feel better, but then you get intoxicated, and then you feel worse, and then you hit bottom again, and then you drink some more to feel better, and the whole thing goes around and around and around. So none of these ego defenses that are offered up fully cover, in terms of explanations, why it is that the drinker behaves the way the drinker behaves. Over time, as we're moving over to the drinking to feel normal stage, we've already started a pattern of crooked thinking, basically, of looking at what we're doing through some rose-colored glasses. This is called euphoric recall, by the way. And that's when I think about my drinking, I don't think about the unpleasantness. I think about how fun it's going to be or how fun it used to be. And I'm moving towards drinking to feel normal because I feel kind of geeky, kind of antsy, kind of like something's about to happen. I'm uneasy. I have anxiety when I'm not under the influence. I need a little something to take the edge off. If you're in recovery, you've probably seen that or felt that. So here we go. We've shifted again. And now the starting point is over here on the unpleasant dysphoric side of the line. And when we drink, we're getting back to where normal used to be. And so we're going over here to where normal used to be, and then we're turning around and we're getting the rebound that takes the finishing point way down on the dysphoric side of the line. We're not drinking to feel good at all anymore. We're drinking to avoid feeling bad, to avoid the hangovers, to avoid the everything that comes along with dependency and binging. The single most important way that we experience alcohol at this point may be to ward off withdrawal syndrome, so that we don't have to have the shakes and the belly burns and the headaches and all of that good stuff anymore. Or if we're really severely addicted, we don't have to go through the tremors and the DTs anymore, which are no fun. As people move through this model that Vernon describes, we see deteriorating functioning. I don't know if it was in this class. I think it may have been in another class where I showed you something that I call the whole person wheel. And people are unified in terms of who we are, but there's Howard here, who is Howard the husband, Howard the father, Howard the grandfather, the family man, the worker, the teacher, There's who I think I am. There's who you think I am. There's who other people think I am. And I have all of these different aspects of my life that demand role behavior, if you will. So that when I'm describing myself by these terms, I'm describing behaviors and relationships, am I not? And as I deteriorate in my ability to fulfill these role behaviors and relationships, it shows up. And that's what we see. That's what we find when we're looking at people diagnostically. Where is a pattern of deteriorating behavior? Where is a consistent pattern of problems? One DWI does not an alcoholic make. One public intoxication does not an alcoholic make, but a series of DWIs, of public intoxications, of divorces, of fights, of lost jobs, of, these sort of things, and you begin to see, that there's a clear pattern. You don't have to look real hard for it either, really, that emerges. Now here's something that throw a little twist into that. If you're a member of a family where someone else is doing a lot of drinking, you can have these types of symptoms too. Kids who are raised in alcoholic homes have tough times. They don't at school. They don't get around with they don't get on with other kids. They may be behavior problems. They don't do their homework. They're unprepared when they come to school. That kind of thing, and they're acting out the problems that are in the home. So this is where someone's drinking has a profound effect on other people who are around them, and this gives lie to that old saw about it's my body, it's no one's business but mine what I put into it, etc. and so forth. Which, by the way, is a line of crap. Family and friends are affected, and they may respond in negative ways to people, or they may do some enabling. And enabling is a behavior that you engage in that basically you make a contract with the drinker that you're going to do this to help them avoid the consequences of their drinking. Now, y'all don't sit down and discuss it and shake hands and stuff like that. I'm being a little flippant with that. But, and I don't say this to family members and things when I'm working with them. I have seen people do that. I saw a guy, a counselor, sit right there, look at Mom, in the eye and said, you keep bailing him out of trouble, and he's going to keep getting into trouble, and one day he's going to die, and it's going to be your fault. No, it's not. But you don't have credibility if you set a limit with someone who's substance use disordered, whether it's alcohol or whatever. And if you tell someone, I'm not going to bail you out if you get arrested, and you bail them out, credibility's gone. You have to be able to maintain whatever it is that you say as a bottom line. You have to be able to hold that bottom line, or you don't have the credibility. Interactions with your drinker at this time also becomes kind of iffy. People bargain with their substance use disordered individual, and say, look, this is, stop this. If you'll quit hanging out with your hoodlum friends and quit smoking that weed that you're smoking and whatever other stuff you're doing, then I'll help you get a car. How about that? And I understand that. That's a wonderful approach and very kind-hearted of you to try to bribe your kid out of being a stoner, except if he's addicted to the drug, he's not going to be able to keep his end of the bargain up, because addiction doesn't allow you to do that kind of thing. normal willpower, the normal choice is kind of paralyzed in that. If there is, in the presence of a significant alcohol disorder with couples, you can expect to find sexual problems arising. Men who drink a lot tend to have erectile dysfunctions, and and I've talked about it in another lecture. That's either not being able to get and sustain an erection long enough to complete the sex act, or they have a preepistic condition where they have an erection, but they can't achieve orgasm, and it's unpleasant. And anyway, women are not clearly as understood in terms of sexual performances, but they can go through with the sex act even if they're not aroused and not interested. They can still do that. Guys generally can. But even in a best case scenario, even if everything's working properly, your chances are pretty good if you're involved with someone who is chemically dependent. Then when you go to bed with them, when you have sexual relations with them, then you're going to be involved with a selfish and inattentive lover who really is kind of a wham bam, thank you, ma'am or sir kind of person. The psychological realm is also affected, and people start to worry about whether or not they'll be able to perform. And this happens a lot in newly recovered couples who are worried about their sexual performance. And there are people who have little interest in sex once they sober up. And they never really had a lot of interest in it anyway, but for many of them. But still people sober up and find out they don't have much in the way of sexual desire. And this may have something to do with alcohol's effect on the endocrine system and hormone levels. We have problems when we sober up trying to patch things up with family because we burn a lot of bridges. We burn a lot of bridges in terms of abrogating our responsibilities. Alcoholic parents are notoriously inconsistent parents. I come home one day and my dad smacks me upside the head and tells me to go to my room because I did or didn't do something. And the next day I come home and he gives me $20 and the keys to the car, and I haven't done a damn thing different. I can be grounded one minute and everything's forgiven the next, And people who grow up in that, and we'll talk about that a little later on with growing up in that system, tend to walk on eggshells because you don't know which dad is going to be there, which mom is going to be there, and how it's going to be. Work. Drinking costs industry billions of dollars a year. Drinking, not just, that's not even talking about cocaine and weed and stuff like that. Poor weed heads. We have EAPs and TWIC cards and things like that, and you go to work nowadays, and you never know when someone's going to come at you with a specimen cup, if you happen to have been smoking some weed a couple of weeks ago, chances are you might have THC in your system, and boom, you're in trouble, and you get caught. That's the weed heads. You may have been drunk, impossibly drunk, and doing cocaine on Saturday, but by Wednesday they're not going to find it in the urine, Or you may be one of those persons that understands how you can smoke some synthetic stuff and they won't be able to detect it in urine, even though it's a terrible, terrible high and dangerous. Employers have, over time, for the most part, when I first ran across EAPs were, let's identify the problem people and get them off of the job. Now, if we can sober them up, maybe we'll let them come back, but then maybe we won't either. So, employee assistance programs, EAPs, are out there now. And EAPs may be a place where some of us wind up working. And EAPs may be a place where we have a lot of our clients referred from. I certainly did back in the 80s and early 90s. So, an interesting thing, and this is particularly true with men, is we may drink up 2 or 3 families and, invest thousands and thousands of dollars on staying out of jail, paying fines and lawyers and stuff, and dig our heels in and say we don't have a problem, we can quit anytime we want to. But when the boss threatens to fire us, suddenly we're amenable to getting treatment. So EAPs really prove to be a boon for the treatment industry. Let's see what else we got going here. Other drugs of abuse. And there are plenty of them. And other drugs of abuse are also learned behaviors. And sometimes the way we learn it is not something that we set out to do. I was listening to a guy one time holding forth about accidental addicts. And accidental addicts, according to this guy, are people who start using drugs like the doctor prescribes you something, and you're taking it like you're supposed to, but then the next thing you know, you take it too long, and when it's time to quit, you get sick when you quit, and now you're addicted. You have a physical addiction. And I was thinking as I was listening to this guy that hell, everybody's an accidental addict. No one, set out to be that. And sure, people get hooked on prescription medication that the doctor gives them for a specific condition. It's a therapeutic intervention. Sure they do. But people get hooked on alcohol, and their goal wasn't to get hooked on alcohol or even to abuse alcohol. Their goal was to fit in, have fun, enhance their mood, etc., and so forth. So there's not a lot of thinking of pros and cons of getting into this. You just get into it. And people who try drugs, most of them are going to walk away from it and go, that was interesting. But there's going to be a percentage of them, and this is going to be the smaller percentage, who are going to have dire problems with that for many years, for the rest of their lives. That's another possibility. But drug use is also a learned behavior. You learn how to do the drugs. You learn how to roll the weed. You learn how to cook up the heroin. You learn how to draw it into a syringe. You learn how to tie off, raise a valve, shoot it in. All of those things. Is the mood swing worth it? For a lot of us, yeah, it is. We hadn't been thinking of it that way. But yeah, it is. And there are many of us who are in recovery who wouldn't be in recovery except for one point in our lives. At some certain low point in our life, either someone intervened on what we were doing, or we discovered that we couldn't or wouldn't pay the price of continued intoxication. It got to be too much. Oh, I've got some allergies going on. So, the hallmark of harmful use is that when drinking continues, despite the fact that obviously we're not having fun anymore, then we're getting that's a trouble point. That's what Jelinek might have called the prodromal phase, the signaling disease phases, and this is where psychological devices are required to distort reaction. And it takes some mental gymnastics sometimes to do that, to make everything okay in our own minds, even though reality often gets in the way. Do we really like the drug's effect at this stage? You can do, I'm not recommending this for newly recovered people either. I'm probably not recommending it for anyone. I'm just making a point that you could go to a bar, pretty much any old bar, and sit there in an afternoon and watch people come in and out and drink, and there are going to be some in there that if they're having fun, I'm the rightful Queen of England, man. And you can watch it when they start, and they may have a good time with the first couple of drinks, something like that, but then it starts to get ugly. And now we see desperation drinking, and we see the mood shifts that are going on with them. We watch it take a toll on them physically as they stagger and can't walk and slur their words and things like that. So it's observable sometimes. Alcoholic people will, do whatever they have to do to continue their addiction, even though the addiction is no fun anymore. And that's true with pretty much any type of substance use disordered individual, any type of addict. Adolescence. Detailed, addressed in detail in chapter 11, but the younger you are when you start drinking, the more likely you are to have problems with the drinking. And you really kind of shoot through Johnson's stages from learning the mood swing to seeking the mood swing to harmful use, etc. Because when you're a youngster and you're using weed, you're taking other types of drugs with your friends, doing acid, eating pills, drinking, chances are pretty good the reason you're doing it is to become as loaded as you can, as fast as you can. So that kids tend to do affect stuff. They really want to get a buzz on it. And their brains aren't developed. Your brain doesn't stop developing until you're 25 years old. So as you continue to use the substance, then you're bringing about more rapid changes in that developing brain. What may take an adult, a grown person who starts using when they're grown, it may take them years to get to this place. Teenagers can get there in months, and it can be a real problem. I am a late bloomer. I didn't start getting high until the summer that I turned 17, but by the time I was 19, I'd already had DWIs, I'd had seizures and withdrawal, all of that kind of good stuff. And I had a familial type of alcoholism because of the positive history of family members. It's common in my bloodline for that. Before y'all celebrate by seeing that that's a final thought, let me backtrack to Johnson again. Johnson, in addition to describing this four-stage development of alcoholism, also described an intervention that you're probably already familiar with, and which is the Johnson model intervention. And that's the one that you see on TV in that show, Intervention. And the Johnson model is a pretty complicated way to address drinking with people. And it basically comes down to this. You have an afflicted individual in your family. You have someone in your family who has a drinking issue. And because you have someone in your family who has a drinking issue, you have decided you want to do something about it. So you come to see a counselor. I forget what the guy's name is who does intervention on TV. But you come to see this guy, a counselor. And what he does is he gathers everybody in the family, mom, dad, friends, bosses, whomever, and he trains you over the course of several sessions on how to confront your user, your SUD. And it's like this: when you talk to them, you lay your cards on the table and you say, "This is what you did," and you put it out there. You were supposed to pick your child up for her birthday and take her to a party, but you didn't show up because you were loaded. And I had to comfort that child, and she was upset. She cried and wept, and I did too, because we were both hurt because of this. And that's what your behavior is doing to us. And you don't do it in calling them names or berating them. It's like the old Joe Friday on Dragnet, man. Just the facts, man. I lay it out here. This happened then, and this is what happened, and this is how I was affected, and this is how I feel about it. And the person who's being intervened on doesn't get to fight back with you. That's what the counselor is a referee in this. For the most part. I don't like these, by the way, but this is something that is still used in our field. I've been in on a few of them. I can't say I care much for them. Generally, the way you get the afflicted person there, get the person who has the disorder, is by lying to them. And I don't think it's a good thing to start a relationship or a treatment or whatever with a lie. What's that? Come on now. It's Marge Simpson. It's one of the Simpsons episodes, and she came into the house and said, "Who wants to go to the beach?" And all of the kids went, "Yay!" and got their bathing suits and beach balls and buckets, and away they went. Well, in the next frame, they're coming back from the beach, and they're all sad and down and all of that stuff because she didn't take them to the beach. She took them to the dentist. But if she said, "Who wants to go to the dentist?" you get my drift. So you lie to the person, you get them there, you confront them, you lay things out, and you tell them what their bottom line is. We love you, we care about you, and this is what we want to do, but we're not going to put up with this anymore. We're not going to enable you anymore. We're not going to buy your BS anymore. So that if you want to get help, this is what we're going to do. And we can go right now down to Good Place Treatment Center, where one of Howard's students is going to be there to wait for us, and we'll begin treatment. And that's what we'll do today. And I have seen people who break down and who admit that something's wrong, that they really do need help, that they're very sorry for everything that happened. And I have seen people turn around to each family member and say, "F you, F you, F you, F you, F you, and don't ever talk to me again, God damn it," and leave. So it can happen a number of ways. I had a nice philosophical discussion about this one time with a guy Jerry C. I won't mention his whole name, but Jerry told me, man, I told him I have some ethical issues with doing that with people, with strong arming them in treatment. He said, hell, I don't. He said, I wish someone had done that to me years ago. I put people in treatment at gunpoint if they'd let me. That's why, I guess it takes all kinds. But anyway, the behavior of alcohol and drug abuse is the thing that we focus on a lot in treatment. And as we as you move forward with your careers, with your education and stuff, you'll see that a behavioral approach is widely used in alcohol and drug abuse treatment and cognitive behavior stuff. If you're in the theories class, you're learning about that right now. So behavior is what we aim to change. A friend of mine used to claim that you can't think your way into acting right, but you can act your way into thinking right. The old indelicate, free your ass and your head will follow. Do what you need to do, because recovery is action, recovery is doing, recovery is moving. And you'll have plenty of time to think and all that good stuff. So I'm going to leave it there tonight. I will see you in chapter 8. Good night.